trustees and members of the public, and I will go ahead and read our electronic script, and maybe this will be the last time. That would be good.
Yep.
Okay, here we go. To conduct this meeting wholly electronically and to effectuate both the emergency procedures authorized by FOIA and the emergency ordinance, this library board of trustees needs to make certain findings and determinations for the record. First, because each member of this library board of trustees is participating in this meeting from a separate location, we must verify that a quorum of members is participating and that each member's voice is clear, audible, and at an appropriate volume for all of the other members. Accordingly, I'm going to conduct a roll call and ask each library board member participating in this meeting to state your name and the location from which you are participating. I ask that each of you pay close attention to ensure that you can hear each of your colleagues. Following this roll call, we will vote to establish that every member can hear every other member. So I will start with Braddock District.
Brian Engler, Braddock trustee. I'm in my home in Burke, Virginia.
Providence. Miriam, are you muted?
Yep, I'm here, Miriam Smolin, in my home in Fairfax.
Okay, great. At large.
Jane Miscavige at large at my home in Vienna.
City of Fairfax.
Suzanne Levy at my city of Fairfax, at my home in the city of Fairfax.
Drainsville.
Jessica Hampton from my home in Great Falls, Virginia.
Hunter Mill.
Oh, Sheila Janiga from my home in Reston.
Lee District.
Keith Fox from my home in Springfield.
Mount Vernon District.
Gary Russell from my home in Mount Vernon.
School Board.
Lucille Dando at home in Woodbridge.
Sully District.
Liz Walker from my home in Centerville.
Springfield District. I think Phil.
There he is.
He's muted.
Phil, you're muted.
Technical difficulties.
Phil, can you unmute yourself?
He may not be hearing you.
Yeah, you can always come back to him later if you need.
There he is.
Yes.
Probably a poor connection.
Okay, and we'll come back to you, Phil. And Mason District, Fran Milhauser from my home in, where do I live? Near Annandale, Falls Church. Okay, at this point, I will pass the virtual gavel to the vice chair so that I may be heard to make the requisite motion. I move that each member's voice may be adequately heard by each other member of this library board of trustees.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Brian. Okay. All those in favor say aye or give the thumbs up.
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved.
Thank you. Second, having established that each member's voice may be heard by every other member, we must next establish the nature of the emergency that compels these emergency procedures. The fact that we are meeting electronically, what type of electronic communication is being used, and how we have arranged for public access to this meeting. Therefore, I move that the state of emergency caused by the COVID-19 pandemic makes it unsafe for this board to physically assemble and unsafe for the public to physically attend any such meeting. And that as such, FOIA's usual procedures, which require the physical assembly of this board and the physical presence of the public, cannot be implemented safely or practically. I further move that this board may conduct this meeting electronically through a dedicated Zoom meeting and that the public may access this meeting on the library website. On the library website. Okay.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Suzanne. All those in favor say aye or give the
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved.
Fran, this is Phil.
Phil,
Can you hear
hi.
me?
I can. Okay, great, Phil. And I will check you off now. Terrific. Thank you, Phil.
Okay. I have a real bad connection where I'm at, so I'll try to participate.
I think you have to tell us where you are. I think it's supposed to say where you're calling from. Tahiti or?
Mazatlan, Mexico.
Okay. All right. All right. I wasn't being nosy. I'm just that everybody had to say that, so there we go. Okay. Let's see, finally, it is next required that all the matters addressed on today's agenda must address.
Jessica said I could come here on library expense and check the libraries out.
Oh, perfect. That's
Hey,
great,
Jessica.
great. We'll expect a full report from your attorney. Finally, it is required that all of the matters addressed on today's agenda must address the emergency itself, are necessary for continuity in Fairfax County government, and/or are statutorily required or necessary to continue operations and the discharge of this board's lawful purposes, duties, and responsibilities.
Is there a second?
Second,
Again, seconded by Suzanne. All those in favor, say aye, or thumbs up. Any opposed? Okay, so moved.
Okay,
Back-
thank you.
Gavel back to you.
Oh, okay, thank you. So now that we're ready for the public comments. The library board wishes to provide an opportunity for the public to comment on library-related issues. It is our policy to hear a maximum of 5 speakers at each regularly scheduled board meeting. Speakers are limited to 1 public comment during a 6-month period. Each speaker has a maximum of 3 minutes for their comments. A 30-second warning will be given before each speaker's time is up, and the speaker will be expected to end promptly when time is called. Speakers are requested to pre-register with the library director. However, if there are available public comment slots open at the time of a board meeting, the remaining slots may be filled by individuals registering at the meeting. Board members will not question or respond to speakers. Tonight, I know of no registered speakers. Is that accurate? Have there been any added since we started? No, okay. If anyone wishes to speak at a future meeting, please call the director's office at 703-324-8324. Okay, now we're ready for the presentation. Over the past number of months, we have been treated to staff presentations on programs that highlight the response of the library to the One Fairfax policy, a policy that focuses on unlocking the potential of every resident in every area of the county. The library is uniquely positioned to focus on and accomplish this goal at our branches across the county. Staff knows that every person is a unique individual, so they develop and offer multiple services and programs. One Fairfax aims to implement equity, and equity is fairness, not sameness. It's not one size fits all, because we know that one size does not fit all, especially if you've ever ordered a piece of clothing advertised as such. In every branch, we do treat everyone equally with respect, but we design and offer services and programs that can entertain, educate, and lift up every individual, and may be different in every location. It's my pleasure tonight to introduce tonight's program on the library's English language learners programs, presented by Laurel Takema, branch manager at Thomas Jefferson, Joe Wright, library information assistant at Pohick, and Kylie Sparks, information services librarian at Chantilly. So take it away. You're muted.
Oh, all right. I just got myself unmuted. I'm trying to avoid that, but
It always happens.
okay. Wonderful. Thank you so much for inviting us tonight to speak on Fcpl's English language learning programs. I'm Laurel Takema. I'm the branch manager at Thomas Jefferson.
I'm Kylie Sparks. I'm a librarian at Chantilly Regional Library.
And my name is Jill Wright. I'm an information services assistant at Pohick Regional. Laurel, Kylie, and I all manage the ELL programs at our respective branches, and we're delighted to be able to talk to you this evening about our programs.
To begin, I wanted to quickly explain where ELL fits in with the library and the county's missions. Learning and improving English literacy is part of both the county's proposed strategic plan and Fcpl strategic plan. For the county, ELL is included under the priority areas of lifelong education and learning and under economic opportunity. Both of these areas address the desire to adapt our approach to effective lifelong learning as our county experiences changing demographics and gaps in language and communication proficiencies. and to enable our most economically disadvantaged residents the ability to build foundational workplace competencies, including English proficiency. For the library, we are dedicated to providing literacy services and materials across all age ranges. We hear a lot about early literacy, naturally, but the library also values supporting adult literacy. This is all especially important for an area as large and diverse as Fairfax County. Just under 40% of residents 5 years and older speak a language other than English at home. Based on 2020 data, this amounts to 456,000 people, or for comparison, a little more than the entire population of Virginia Beach. According to FCPS data, within Fairfax County, there are a total of 182 different languages or dialects spoken in the homes of elementary school students.
Libraries are uniquely positioned as safe places where people can get ELL help for free. Fcpl provides this help through collections, books and audiobooks naturally, but also our online collections through information services where knowledgeable staff can refer them to resources and programs, both the libraries and local partners, and through programming. Fairfax County Public Library patrons are able to access online resources using a carefully curated selection of our library website specifically dedicated to our ELL community. Using their library card, ELL learners and their instructors are entitled to use virtual learning subscriptions to hear and practice English words and grammar. They can even plan for and study for exams and find similar organizations in our community that serve ELL populations.
Before the pandemic, 21 of the FCPL branches offered either small or large group conversation circles, structured classes, and one-on-one volunteer tutors. Some branches offered more specialized classes as well. The conversation circles are informal groups with a facilitator who helps to lead a conversation based on a theme. Usually people take turns introducing themselves and then share opinions and stories. People who come to the conversation circles tell us that they are an invaluable opportunity to practice speaking English. Although some people have already studied English in their home country, studying a language and speaking a language are two different things. New immigrants have to be able to understand American speech, including multiple accents, slang, and idioms, and to express themselves. Conversation circles provide a safe and friendly space for practice. Again and again, people tell us that our groups give them the confidence to start speaking English out in the world. And here's a picture of some of our group conversation circles and classes. And this next slide shows a ticket for a one-on-one session used by Pohick Library. A one-on-one session is where a student sits down with a volunteer tutor to practice conversation. This gives the student the opportunity to do more speaking and ask more questions than is usually possible in a group. It's also an opportunity to get to know someone who lives in the community who can help them to learn about local opportunities and events. Several branches at FCPL offer citizenship classes. These classes help people to study for the citizenship test, which includes a civic and a history test. Test takers must also demonstrate an understanding of the English language, including the ability to read, write, and speak basic English. This slide on the left-hand side shows a picture of Svetlana Soyana, a 70-year-old grandmother from Ukraine who passed her citizenship test in 2020 as a result of taking the citizenship class at Chantilly Library, coming to conversation circles, and studying every week with one-on-one tutors. The day of this photo, she did an interview with the Fairfax County news station to talk about how much she appreciated our programs. She was so proud and happy that day. And then on the right hand of the slide, you can see Citizenship Corner. Some of the branches have these to display resources to help people prepare for the naturalization test. And a few branches offer Ell Play Groups. These are informal programs that parents or caregivers can bring their children to. The adults make conversation while kids play in the same room. This solves the problem of childcare for participants, and it's also an opportunity for people to make friendships in the community. ELL programs for adults end up benefiting the whole family. As adults increase their literacy, they become more comfortable reading and speaking English with their children and grandchildren. And one thing we found is that ELL participants become the library's biggest fans. The ELL program provides a great way for libraries to collaborate with other organizations like schools, universities, and churches. At Chantilly Library, we have collaborated with teachers from the high school's adult ELL program. We held several joint potluck events and library tours in which people from both organizations were able to share resources and get to know each other. And in 2019, we also formed a partnership with George Mason University in which 2 classes of college students volunteered as conversation partners for our ELL students. On the right is a photo of some of the college students who ended up creating final projects for their class about the library. Collaborations with outside organizations are a great way to raise awareness of library resources and services in the community. So who is involved in ELL programs? The students come from all countries and backgrounds. Often they have only been in the US a few weeks. Sometimes they have been in this country for years, but were previously busy raising their children or working and have not had the opportunity to improve their English. Some people are refugees having fled war-torn countries, like Sadiq Kara, a biomedical engineer from Turkey, whose story you'll find in the appendix of our presentation. Many times our students are professionals in their own country, teachers and doctors and architects, but they need to first improve their English before they can seek new credentials here. Also involved in ELL programs are staff members and many dedicated volunteers. Volunteers are often retirees like Elaine Skurnick. She was interested in volunteering with ELL students because her own grandfather was an immigrant. She started as a one-on-one tutor, then became the co-teacher for a group class, and she's now doing virtual one-on-one tutoring. In the past, Fcpl has sponsored ELL volunteer forums, giving volunteers an opportunity to learn from ELL community leaders, seasoned ELL educators, and each other.
So what does this all look like numbers-wise? Measuring our last 12 months of quote unquote normal ELL programming before the pandemic, from February 2019 to February 2020, 29% of all Fcpl events were ELL. This amounts to 5,142 ELL events with an attendance of over 22,000. 212 volunteers helped with this program, providing more than 10,000 volunteer hours to the county. As Kylie said, we have found that our ELL patrons become some of our most dedicated library users, participating in other events, taking part in library initiatives like 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten, volunteering, and sharing information about the library with their friends and family.
Like many programs, classes, and library-sponsored groups, English language learning programming was forced to temporarily suspend efforts to serve the community in early March on the outset of the pandemic. As it was for everyone at this time, this was an upsetting and frustrating development, especially since we, as the library's ELL programming staff, were very aware of the important and sometimes critical need that ELL programs and classes served to some of our county's most vulnerable residents. We were all relieved when Fairfax County Library was able to resume programming for the ELL community, if in a slightly different format. Beginning in May, ELL programming adapted to a virtual platform using Zoom. We were so proud and frankly touched how many of our ELL volunteers were not only willing, but eager to work with us to return ELL programming to our patrons. Many of them contacted us and made sure that we knew that when ELL programming resumed in whatever format, they were ready to serve again. Library staff studied and familiarized themselves with the new software, and in turn, trained volunteer program leaders and hosts to use the software as well. Virtual programming began with each branch sharing a Zoom channel with its cluster. But the popularity of these programs and other programs soon made it necessary for each branch to acquire its own Zoom account in November of 2020. ELL programming shifted to two forms. virtual structured classes and conversation groups, and virtual one-on-one conversation groups. The virtual forms of these programs were modified to mirror the in-branch experience as much as possible. Blackboards and whiteboards were exchanged for their virtual cousins, and worksheets were mailed to students before class began.
And so what does this all look like numbers wise? Since we moved online in May of 2020, we've held 836 virtual ELL events with attendance of 5,310. 49 volunteers came back to help with this effort, providing more than 2,500 volunteer hours to the county. Continuing ELL programming during the pandemic was doubly helpful. It helped students continue to improve their English and provided much needed social connections during a time of isolation. But besides those numbers, how do we measure success? One of the perennial difficulties public libraries face is formally evaluating the true successfulness of some of our programming. Because the goals are so many of them are long-term, and because we value privacy, it is difficult for us to do longitudinal studies or evaluations to determine successful outcomes. We don't, for example, track what families regularly attend story times and their success later in life in school, which effective early literacy is partially tied to. Similarly, we don't require any information from our customers attending ELL sessions, and we don't circle back in, say, a year or so to determine how successful using the classes was. Therefore, we evaluate with how well our individual sessions go and how well the logistics of a setup work. And our primary indicators of value are through attendance and waitlist statistics, which show demand, and direct anecdotes and feedback from many students and teachers. We hear frequently from students how much they appreciate the classes and how much they've helped. So we've added an appendix with some stories and comments that are representative of the type of feedback we regularly get. We commonly hear from students that their reason for attending ELL sessions is to better themselves personally and professionally, which ties into the county's strategic goals of lifelong learning and economic success. We've received numerous stories of how improving their English has helped the students advance at work, help them integrate more easily to the area, and help them form relationships with others in the community. Because of this consistent positive feedback and because of the overwhelming demand for these classes, we feel confident to continue to offer and further adapt our ELL services.
We all look forward to the day when Fcpl will resume former operations and we are able to host in-branch programs again. Many of our patrons miss the personal connection they shared with fellow students, instructors, and conversation leaders in branch-based programs. Some remain intimidated by the digital divide. Others find themselves competing for digital resources with other family members in their household or have little or no access to technology like phones, computers, tablets, or Wi-Fi. On the other side, many of our current virtual attendees have told us that they would not otherwise have been able to attend our EL programs because of health concerns, childcare, family responsibilities, cultural considerations, or even simple distance and lack of transportation options. In fact, many of our new attendees through virtual programming have reported having never set foot in a Fairfax County Public Library or taken advantage of our programs or resources until now. Future ELL programming will be both in-branch and online to keep the new population of ELL patrons who we now serve virtually and who have told us that they prefer to continue with us in this format, as well as serving those who prefer or can only access them in person. Thank you for listening to our presentation this evening. We are so proud of the programs, resources, and volunteers that now serve our growing English language learners community every day through the Fairfax County Public Library. We are inspired and amazed by our ELL patrons. We are excited for the future of ELL in Fairfax County. And we are grateful for the chance to do a great good for a wonderful group of people who truly need and appreciate our efforts and return as active patrons and citizens.
Okay, thank you very much. And I have one. Oh yeah, that was a great presentation, really fascinating. I'm interested to know how, when you said there were some people who hadn't heard of it or hadn't been ever been in the library. So how did they hear about the program in order to get involved in it? Any of you? 3.
Many of them heard, checked online.
Uh-huh.
They looked at our programs that were available on our website, and some of it became word of mouth. We have several ladies from the au pair community who put the word out that we were a great resource to practice your English and learn English in a nice, welcoming, friendly environment. It's places like.
I have a question, may I?
Go ahead.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry.
I thank you for the presentation. It's very worthwhile. We have the ELL circles I've seen at Burke Center when I've been there doing volunteer work and stuff. And they're always very, very happy to be there. I found it interesting when I was looking at the numbers, of course, I just kind of naturally assumed, well, you know, maybe half the people came, something like that. But in fact, what Jill said towards the end, that some people are more inclined to be online and others live, is a very important point. And I think it bears not only on this program, but other ones going forward. I've been waiting to do live programs. I said, oh, this is it. We got to do live programs. But we also have to keep up an online presence in a lot of cases, at least for ELL, maybe story times, I don't know what. So, of course, all that costs more money, but, you know, it's just something we've got to remember, I think, that when we go back to the normal, it won't be normal. It'll be kind of doing everything twice. And I don't know how we can do that, but I'm sure that Jessica knows. Right, Jess?
Well, I would say that we're going to try and find a balance between them. So instead of going 100% in person, maybe we'll do 50-50 online virtual, because we'll have less people coming in to do in-person ELL programs. So maybe we can devote some of those volunteer resources towards virtual services.
I mean, it won't only be the ELL. There'll be some other programs, I think. And it's just something I hadn't thought of before. I thought you're either live or you're online, but I think we're going to have to keep up a little bit of both. As long as we don't have to do our live meetings online. Go ahead.
I was just going to say the hybrid model is really what we're going to need to focus on as we continue past the pandemic. We have certainly found that many of our adult programs have been very successful virtually. Adult author visits, things like the ELL program. Deb Smith-Cohen is on here, and she just wrapped up her Ignite Small Business program, which was very successful in an entirely virtual environment. So we're going to have to try and find that happy medium. It'll be
that's going to be a challenge that we look forward to. That's good. It's always good to know challenges before they show up. Thanks.
Fran, it looks like Liz has her hand up.
Okay, Liz.
Yes, I do. I was wondering, do the volunteers get training, or do they just on the job training as they go along?
You want to take that, Kylie?
Each volunteer gets an orientation, and basically, you know, at our branch, I will just sit down with a volunteer and talk to them for 30 minutes or so, and then. But it's also ongoing of checking in with volunteers over the weeks. How is it going? Are you encountering any problems? And we have some written guidelines as well for, you know, for one-on-one tutors.
And we've often had our new ones shadow or sit in on sessions of experienced DLL teachers to get some experience that way.
I was going to say, do you go over the materials that are available to them depending on what they are volunteering, type of volunteering that they're doing?
Yes.
Go ahead, Jill.
Well, we are very fortunate that we have a lot of volunteers in our community who are already experienced ELL instructors or training to be ELL instructors. So in one of the slides showed Beata, who was actually a professor at George Mason University and also Northern Virginia Community College in ELL, and she came back to us to instruct people. We have other people who are learning, and we generally they will shadow experienced teachers. And we also have resources online that they've been using quite a bit to learn EL instruction, and books that are available for them as well.
Sometimes I think the library is such a secret. It's so unknown. And I wonder about service organizations that could be contacted with publicity about the opportunity to volunteer in this area, because it might be something that's in their goals and objectives. And then I wonder if, are there like adult education ELL classes, and if we publicize to that realm, you know, would get people who haven't, because as you mentioned, there's so many people who haven't heard about the library, and especially people who have come here from other countries where the public library is not an established institution. So for us to get them hooked and to get them to come in is really important. I think this is a great sounding program. I'm just really impressed.
In addition to the programs that staff and volunteers provide, Fcpl also partners with the Literacy Council of Northern Virginia and a couple of other groups like that do structured classes with paid teachers. And we're able to use their network to further get the word out about kind of collaborative programming. So depending on if you want a structured class every week where you come in and you do this might be the right program for you. We offer those at Sherwood, and it's all pre-pandemic at this point. I can't actually remember. We offered it at Sherwood and somewhere else out in South County. Whereas with our staff and volunteer-led ones, as Kylie mentioned, pre-pandemic, it was offered at 21 of the 22 public branches. So we try and find that nice mix and ensure that we're reaching out to that community, because it's very large in Fairfax.
Any other? Oh, Sheila.
Yeah, I really was impressed with the play group that you showed, and you also said that there was, so is there some sort of parents can bring their children so they can work in the, in the conversation circle or the ELL classes, and their children are taken care of as in a play group? Is that what, did I understand that?
Yeah, so the adults talk in a circle at the tables, and then there's someone playing with the kids. And many people cannot come otherwise because they can't get childcare. And the one that I did was in the morning, so I found most of the kids were in a really young age. I know Herndon also had an Ell Play Group, and I suspect that depending on the time of day, you get different age children.
Yeah, I think that is so important because, as you said, so many parents aren't able, if they don't have childcare, they themselves can't take advantage of this. So I think that's a wonderful part of the program.
Another surprise was that I found a lot of grandparents would come with the kids.
Nice.
Because often it's grandparents are here in this country to help their adult children take care of grandchildren. And it's a good opportunity for them to do something as well.
That's great.
Does anybody else have any
No,
thoughts?
just congratulations. It was a great presentation. And
Thank you.
what you are doing.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you so much. That was great. Okay, next item on the agenda is the April minutes. Any motion to accept? Anyone? Hello?
I'll move that we accept the minutes for the, as written for the April meeting.
Second.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you. Okay, the minutes are accepted. The chair's report, the only thing I have to comment on is what a lovely ceremony that was at John Marshall. Thank you, Jessica and Bobby, for the behind the scenes, Bobby. Oh, we need a bigger tent. Oh, refreshments. Oh, there's a moving target. And those of you who were not able to attend, it was really lovely. I thought the scene stealer was Will's grandson who wrapped up the talks, and he was fantastic. Anybody else have any thoughts or anything they want to share? No. Okay, great. Move on to committee reports and start with Suzanne. Any news from the Library Foundation?
Nothing new. I was unable to go Saturday night to the big event. Maybe someone else who was there can talk about it. We bought tickets, but we were both fighting colds and didn't want to go out in the chill.
I can share. I was also unable to attend. Miss Hannah was not awake, but Lisa gave me a report this morning. She said that the event sold out. So they had 250 people there to watch Harry Potter #1.
It's great.
And the reason that the movie started so late at 8:30, okay, that feels late just to me. It's probably not actually late, but seemingly late is because the company that they rent the inflatable screen from, you can't start it until it gets dark out. So during the summer, the movies start later, and during the winter, they start earlier. The sale at the beginning had at least 2 friends groups there. It was Chantilly and Oakton and maybe some others. And we heard reports that that went pretty well and they had good sales. And food trucks were busy all night. So most of the attendees had already responded that they were looking forward to the next one. So we're planning a couple more this summer at Chantilly, and maybe a slightly shorter movie this time, so it doesn't end at like 11 p.m.
Okay, great. Anybody else? Okay, great. Thank you. Finance Committee, Miriam.
We did not have a meeting, so it's a very short report.
Okay, Outreach Committee, Brian.
Okay. Yes, we haven't had a meeting either, but we do have one on Monday, the 17th at 2 p.m. And it's virtual, hopefully for the last time, but we'll see. Not much else.
Okay, thank you. Nominating Committee, Gary and Keith.
I defer to Gary.
Okay.
Unless he wants to stay on mute.
No, I was just planning to listen to you, Keith.
We didn't discuss that. Did you, Fran, forgive me, but we're not making a motion today. We're just presenting the candidates for the, okay, thank you, Jessica.
All right, tonight, okay, so I'll go ahead. Tonight, at this meeting is a presentation of the slate of officers. Also, if anyone contacted the committee about nominating someone or nominating themselves, and then also we can accept nominations from the floor tonight. If anyone wants to nominate someone or add their name to the list, and then we will vote on it in June. So we're waiting to find out who is on the slate.
Okay.
Only you can tell us.
Okay, I can do that. All right. So after the outreach, we received 2 candidates for the 2 positions. 1 candidate each for each position. 1 candidate for the vice chair would be Mr. Brian Engler. And he's not smiling. I expected a big smile. Okay, thank you. Right. And right. And secondly, for position of the foundation representative would be Miss Liz Walker. So absent of any other nominations, I guess is now the time to ask for nominations for. Okay.
So did you have a chair on your list of nominations? I didn't hear a name for the chair.
Oh.
I just, do you guys want to go off and discuss this right now?
No. My apologies. I went with the assumption that everyone knew that Fran was doing such a great job that she would stay in the chair position. So yes, and then
Surprise.
The nominee for the chair position would be the wonderful, exciting Miss Fran Millhauser.
So in the between time, did you receive any nominations? Did anyone nominate themselves or send you any names to the committee?
Outside of who I announced, no.
Okay. Now, would anyone like to nominate themselves or nominate someone else for any of the 3 positions that are on the slate? Just giving everyone time. Something going on in one square. This is like Hollywood Squares.
I think this is a wonderful slate.
Okay. Okay, so I think that, thank you very much, nominating committee, and then those, as we said, those, that slate will be voted on at the June meeting. So thank you very much. Ebook advocacy meeting committee, any report, Gary?
Yes, we had our first meeting on the 21st of April. The bulk of the meeting was an outstanding presentation by Jessica and Diane Cohen, the Director of Technical Operations. It covered everything from the unique terminology that we have to learn to deal with e-materials to a comprehensive amount of information, very pertinent data on the library's collection that compared the ebooks and e-audio with printed books, covering such areas as cost, circulation, and for our purposes, especially the barriers to purchase. Those things include, 1, the cost. Of course, the ebooks are far more costly. Licensing limitations, because they call it software instead of books. And finally, the refusal of companies like Amazon to sell to libraries at all or for a period of time. So our next meeting will be Friday, 2 o'clock, still at a computer close to you, when we're going to concentrate on solutions to addressing those problems. What we hope to do is to develop, I think it'd be called a position paper or position statement that can be included in the county's legislative agenda. The timetable is a little bit rigid. We're gonna have to work hard to meet it. One is we hope to have it as a consideration item at the June meeting of the board. So that way it'd be ready for action at the July meeting. And then we can meet the deadline the county's imposed at August the 3rd to receive any of the legislative initiatives for next year. So that's it, I guess.
Okay. Anybody have questions or comments or ask for clarification or information? You guys did a lot of work in one meeting. Okay, time. We will move on to the Library Fines Committee. Sujatha.
Library Fines Committee, hi everyone, is the Where It's At committee. Lots of fun. Really nice group of people. So we met on May 4th. It was Fran, Suzanne, Jane, Liz, Jessica, Chris Bartholomew, I think that's his last name, or Bartholomew, Robert Henry, Aaron, I think joined us as well. And I think that I got everybody. I hope I did. Oh, well, I said Liz. Yeah, I said Liz. You're on my list. I read Liz. Liz. And really what this is about is exploring this idea. So like of removing the fines and what all is entailed. So there's like some, looking into it. So this is like the beginning meeting of this whole idea and concept. I will say though that I was interested in hearing that Loudoun and Arlington are now fines free, and Prince William County is about to be fines free. So we're the odd ones out right now. So we had to do some exploration and make some decisions. Also interested to hear, I asked, like, what is our discretion? Like, what is our, or does the BOS, what does the Board of Supervisors have are there directives from the Board of Supervisors? So really, it seemed to me, and Jessica, you can clarify for me if I'm wrong, that we have to make our case. That's what we have to do. We have to be able to make our case to the Board of Supervisors. So that's what we would like to be able to do before our joint meeting with the Board of Supervisors, which is October 12th. We get our act together there. So we got a wonderful presentation, as always, from our amazing staff. They told us just tons of information, and we got a rundown of the system, the fine system, what's interesting is, another thing is that it's quite costly to run the program, is quite costly, which, you know, that was some information that I hadn't considered. It costs a lot of money to be chasing down fines. It costs a lot of money to like operate. I think that was the kiosks, Jessica, or something like that. So there is a cost involved with collecting these fines, and there is at a specific point, like 2 years, I think they just get removed anyway. So you don't chase them forever. You just chase them for a certain amount of time. So that is also something interesting. So you have to really, the question that we all posed to staff, and they're collecting this information for us, is what is the return on investment, right? So are we making more money by collecting fines than we're putting out? That would be an interesting thing to know. So we know whether the juice is worth the squeeze, is the way I put it. Also another question, and please, anybody who was on that meeting, I was trying to take notes and make sure that I got everything, but one of the things that we wanted to know is, where are the fines being tallied up? What are the magisterial districts, the actual libraries that are tallying fines? Because it may not always be what you think, it really may not be that the places you thought were the places that people are running up fines are the places they're running up fines. So it's a good thing to know, or is it overlaid with, Bill is partying. Sorry. So we'd like to see just sort of where are the fines being tallied up, and what magisterial district. So that's this information that you're just sort of speculating, because another thing that they shared, which was really interesting information, of course, and we all know this because we have library cards, there's no demographic data on our library cards. You don't know whose library card is. Liz asked like how many of the people are seniors. How many people we don't know what income bracket they're coming from. We don't know what age bracket they're necessarily coming from. You can't really judge anything we don't know. So we could make assumptions, but we really just don't know. So you might get some sort of an idea if you were to overlay libraries with fines collected in those libraries, maybe to make some assumptions, just to know. Okay. So Jessica said, now tell me if I've got this right, that I would like to add this as a new business item to the September agenda. I don't know if there's a process for doing that, but I would like to add that to the September agenda so we could have our act together basically for the October meeting. She had suggested also that we could discuss it our retreat, but we will not be able to do that if the retreat has to be on those 2 dates when I'm not here, for which I apologize. And our next meeting is June 7th at 10 a.m. Please join us if you'd like. It was really quite a very informative meeting. And I think that I got everything, Jessica, but if I did not, please add anything I missed.
No, you got it all. And when I send a follow-up email tomorrow morning, I'll be sure to include the PowerPoint from both your committee meeting and from Gary's committee meeting about the ebook advocacy. And it looks like Priscilla has her hand raised if you want to consider
I'm
questions.
so excited that this committee exists, first of all, and I'm sad that I can't attend the next meeting on June, you said 7th, because I'll be out of town. But I did want to share, and I don't need to take time in the meeting here, but I did want to share that Fairfax County Public Schools has been fines free for 3 years. And I did a ton of research. There isn't a lot of research on school library fines. So almost all of my research was in public library fines. The the thing that was a selling point was what Jessica alluded to for the principals, which was essentially all of the human cost that goes into managing the fines. That's energy that could be put elsewhere. The other thing that was a big selling point for us was the opportunity cost. And when you think about it, students, just talking students here, who could afford fines, we charge 10 cents a day. They would just keep the book as long as they felt like it. And if they had to pay $5, no sweat off, their brow. But there were students who wouldn't even ever check out a book at all for fear that they would get a fine. And so when we did our study at Justice High School, we determined that their circulation went up among the people who became first-time library users, because one, they didn't want to be harassed, quote unquote, every time they came in the library for "where's your money?" Or they were afraid that they wouldn't be able to pay it and would be embarrassed about that. So when you talk about an inequity in a system that sets up for itself for an inequity, I think fines is the pure definition of that. My only question is, are we considering just late fees, or are there what occurs when there are lost books? And you don't have to answer that question. It's just a question that I have as far as the scope of your committee work.
Jessica, I'm sure knows the answer to this better than I do, but I can say that during our meeting, what you just said regarding resistance to using the library for fear of fines was definitely discussed. And also just what you said about people who could afford the fines, there really isn't necessarily any incentive to hurry and get that book back. Also that we do I think it was 3 automatic renewals if the book is not on request, on hold. And also, correct me again if I'm wrong, Jessica, but if the book is lost, that book still is supposed to be paid for. Yes. So if the book doesn't come back, the book is to be paid for.
Yes. So the current directive of this committee is mainly looking at overdue fines. The additional fees that might be assessed for things like missing disc out of a book on CD, or if you damage the cover or something, those are still planned to be in place. And if an item is lost and not brought back, that charge would still be assessed so that the library could buy a new copy, but also to provide an impetus for people to bring those things back. So there is still a portion of that kind of.
And that's what we have in the school system. We still charge either a replacement cost, or if someone can obtain a copy that may not be the exact copy, but is a usable copy, they can replace that as well. And for for the same reason that we couldn't, although I know of, not in Ranko County, now I'm forgetting. Anyway, I know of another county that is eliminating, basically charging for anything in the school system. So we'll see if that gets legs in the school environment, but thank you.
Suzanne?
Yeah, you've got Jane and Suzanne with their hands up.
Priscilla, how does that work with free and reduced lunch kids? Do they have to pay for lost books?
So I would love to talk about this all day, because this is my passion. There's absolutely no reason why a student cannot have a book that they want or need. There's no excuse. Anytime a student wants or needs a book, they get to have a book. But there are a couple of things that occur there. It's confidential if a student receives assistance and support through the free and reduced lunch program. So librarians may not necessarily know who they are. We don't do things like, this might be controversial, we don't do things like read off what you owe or work in the library for what you owe, because that does still put a burden on people who maybe can least afford that time, or give the idea that, maybe reading is supposed to be fun, and maybe forcing someone to read for a period of time may not be fun in the school setting there. There's just connotations with that. So our policies say that you cannot refuse to give a book to a student if they request it or they need it because they have a book that they owe, or that they have a bill on a lost book that they owe. So our regulations say you cannot do that. So what happens sometimes over the course of a student's career, near the end, there gets to be some obligations that they have. We do give everyone a clean slate as they are rising 7th graders and rising 9th graders, because we don't want the book you checked out in 4th grade that you can't find and no one's going to pay for to prevent you from getting materials that you need 3, 4, 5 years later. And then, you know, we are stewards of the resources. So we do have strategies where in supportive ways, more like being a citizen of your school community, where if you have books and other people need them, you know, that's not practicing good citizenship for your community kinds of things. And honestly, I was a high school librarian. I could just talk to a student and say, what can we do? How can I help you? And there's strategies even at elementary that are really cute about keeping track of your books. So anyway, like I said, I could talk forever about this. It's a passion for me, but I want it on record that in Fairfax County Public Schools, students who need and want books will have them. There's no barrier there.
Great.
Thank
Jane?
you.
Thank you very much for sharing that.
And then you had Jane and Gary.
I just wanted to acknowledge, since we've all grown up with library fines, it might feel weird for some of us to even be having this conversation. I know it's come up before and some of us have expressed reservations. Right now, the committee work, we've just learned a ton, as Sujatha happened to gloss over. I mean, there's so much information. There are so many compelling reasons for us to be investigating this and potentially making changes. If you are feeling uncomfortable with this discussion, or if you have objections to it, please email those thoughts or questions to us before the June 7th meeting so we can try to find more information for you. I think that we are the outlier. I think as we present this to the full board, you'll find there are no compelling, credible reasons for us to be in this position at this point. Times have changed. As Jessica said, we just want our stuff back. And the traditional system of levying fines is not effective any longer. So you'll be hearing more about this, but once we do make a change, which I anticipate we will recommend doing, we are all going to be ambassadors for explaining why something so fundamental to traditional library service would be changing. So I just want to ask, so this doesn't clog up a board discussion, if you have reservations or questions or concerns, please let us know on the committee level so we can investigate that further for you.
And Jane, if there's like, I was really trying very hard to get everything down, but if you think of anything like right now, like you just want to throw out there that I missed, that's because there were a lot of compelling reasons and it was a wonderful presentation, which we'll get. Please blurt them out so that people can have a chance to think about it. That might help with them formulating their questions. But I mean, I couldn't think of anything else when I was looking through my notes.
No, okay, Gary, you want, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I know I never endear myself to my colleagues by addressing this subject, but I've also heard from constituents that have similar concerns that I do. And that's why I spoke on it before. So I just simply want to ask the committee to at least spend a little bit of time thinking about other than just purely economic reasons or burden on the library reasons, but look at what I would call the psychological reasons. I think probably the vast majority of the people we're letting off the hook are people who can very well pay the fine. We need to find a way to help the others without ignoring these other aspects, the responsibility aspect that I talked about before, the thing I called the soft bigotry of low expectations. So all I'm doing, I'm not making an argument. I'm just saying that I've promised the people that have contacted me that I would not just ignore it, but that I would ask the committee and the board to at least think beyond just the economic and the burdensome administrative things.
Okay, great. Thank you, Gary. Anybody else have any questions or comments?
Liz has her
before we
hand.
move on?
This is Phil. Could you hear me?
Yes.
The only concern, I understand the trend is moving here. The only thing that concerns me some is, and I mentioned this before when the subject came up, I'm not at all speaking against doing away with fines. It's like what we're teaching these young people that, they're dealing with responsibility. And, I own a collection agency, so I deal with all kinds of people who, don't take responsibility for what they do. And it just to me a little bit, I would not oppose this, but I'm concerned as to what lesson we are teaching the people. I echo some of the things that Gary said is, I would not want any child or anybody not to come to the library to get a book because they owe a fine. But the big picture, and I'll stop with this, is the lesson that we're implanting with people about responsibility. So that's just my comment.
Okay, thank you both. I think that the committee is going to be looking at all sides of the issue and debating them and, getting information about how it's gone at places that have eliminated them as well as places that have kept them. So I think both of these new committees are heavy lifts with a lot of work involved in them. So, very thoughtful comments and questions tonight, and I think that process will continue. So thank you both, new chairs of new committees and existing chairs as well. Okay, thank you. And now it's time for the director's report. Turn it over to Jessica.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure that Jane, your hand is still up. Did you have another
Oh, I'm
comment? Are you
sorry.
good?
No, okay.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure. I didn't want to skip you over if you wanted to chat.
You're done.
So there are a couple of things that are part of your packet. Hopefully you've had a chance to read over, but in case you haven't, the county budget passed, yay. And there were two additional pieces in there that were really exciting for our wonderful staff. The first is a one-time $1,000 bonus for merit employees and a $500 bonus for non-merit employees, which is a really nice way to try and show how much the county cares for folks and how hard they've been working, even though we originally didn't think there was going to be enough money in the budget for any kind of market rate adjustment. However, the Board of Supervisors was able to scrimp and scrape and move things around and find enough for a 1% ongoing increase to salary for employees that is effective the first pay period in July. So although there was no additional money for the library or most other agencies, we will see a small bump that is all intended to go towards staff salaries, which is lovely, and we're very happy to see that. You probably also read in there that we are, oh, I'm sorry, Liz, did you have a question on that?
Yes, I did. What does that mean, merit versus non-merit? What does that mean?
Merit employees are benefited employees. So they get leave and retirement and health coverage.
Got it.
Yeah. The two other items that were in there were, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead. Brad.
Suzanne had her hand up.
Oh, sure.
But she's muted.
Will pages get a bonus?
Yeah, they are non-merit employees. They'll get a $500 bonus.
They will get, okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Yes, I am really pleased the county was able to extend that to almost all employees. The only folks that don't get it are elected officials. So sorry, elected officials. One of the other agenda items in there was about donations. I know that many of you have had individual questions about when you can go drop off your donations at the library again. We're almost there, but not quite yet. We know, as well as you all do, that there's no way that we could handle all of those incoming donations without the support of our friends groups. So we have put a query out to all of the groups and asked them to reply by today. And we've heard back from all but one friends group about their individual capacity to bring volunteers back in, their comfort level coming back in, and if they would be able to help us out, knowing that the library doesn't have any more storage space for them right now, and likely neither does the warehouse, because they're continuing to support health and election operations. So it's a big ask of the friends groups that, you know, do you want to come back and do all this work, but we can't give you anything extra?
Yeah.
We're hoping that many of them will be able to, but I don't know. Brian, you are a member of friends group, so do you have a
Yeah,
perspective?
I'd like to, just if I may, I appreciate your asking. Obviously, we talked about it at our friends group and spoke to the branch manager at Burke Center at least about it. And I know Kings Park has, I think they've provided you information. But the thing that I insist on every time I talk to people, but I didn't see it in their feedback, is that however we accept donations, we have to, it should be countywide, I think, and I think you've already said that, but we have to do it in a very measured way. And I don't know whether we want to have, you know, A through E last names donate on Monday, you know, or something like that, or you can only bring in 2 boxes a week per family. You can, there's a lot of different ways we can do it. We can accept one, you know, donations 1 day a week. I don't know, but
yeah. Or
I have
2
been at
bags
the
of family
receiving
or
end.
something.
I have been at the receiving end of huge piles of books, and I'm getting older. And I know in Burke Center, there's just no way I can handle that. Certainly not if we can't ship it to the county. So, you know, we just can't. We'll end up having to throw stuff away that could be good, and that's not what we want to do. Because some elected person will see it or something. I don't know, but you know, we do have to be very, very careful. So please, I'm sure you're aware of that, but as a guy on the receiving end of all these boxes and big piles of things, I can't take all that stuff in at one time. So we really have to be careful with that.
Absolutely. And that's why we wanted to query the friends groups in the first place, instead of just saying, hey, we're going to take donations again. You all are ready to go, right? That seemed like a recipe for some problems.
Yeah, this is definitely going to take planning.
Yeah. So like I said, we have asked all the friends groups to give us feedback today, and we've heard back from almost all of them. And Bobby and I are going to start sifting through those tomorrow. Initial review indicates that it's all over the board, right? Some groups are ready to go, bring us all the donations that people ever wanted to bring in. And others are saying, no, please stay away. We're not ready. We don't have the capacity. No. So we're going to try and find some kind of happy midpoint. Many of you have, as you visited branches, likely also noticed, it doesn't really always matter when we say things like, please don't bring us donations, because people just drop them in the book bin anyway. Right. And even if we put in place, you know, people with last name A through E, you can drop it off this week, or you can drop off 2 bags, they're still going to drop off everything. So still working on it. TBD, we'll keep you all apprised of that. And I included a list as well. One of the other agenda items were some of the AAPI month events that we've got going on. I think the next one, we just wrapped up an author event, and I think there is a cloth making program. I'm not going to say it right. BATIK.
The Batik. I think registration closed because I was looking at programs and I think it closed.
Yeah. So we're running through some great ones there. Had a lot of good participation so far. In addition to the things on your actual agenda, I've got a couple of other updates. Fcpl is ending quarantine of our incoming returns as of Friday. We are going to start publicizing it tomorrow or maybe Friday. I can't remember which day, but end of this week. And this is all based on science. We had held off for a little while, but the latest updates from the CDC show extremely minimal opportunity for transmission of COVID-19 on flat surfaces like books. So we feel pretty comfortable moving forward, which may also help with the donation discussion if we're not having to have things sit out. And at the same time that we are revoking quarantine, we're moving back to some of our normal or original circulation patterns. So we are putting our checkout and hold limits back at pre numbers. We're going back to the normal pattern where we email people when their items are overdue or when they have hold. So we're little baby steps towards normalcy again, which is nice as we're inching a little bit closer. I've emailed you so many times. I don't want to do it again, but the meeting seemed like a good opportunity to say one more time that the American Library Association virtual conference is happening in June. If you're interested, please let Bobby and I know. Fcpl will pay for your ticket to participate. And most of the program appears to be up there, so you can take a poke around and see what kind of good stuff's happening. I was really nice and excited to see so many of you at the Will Jasper event last week. We have the initial shortcut video, maybe 2 minutes or so. Fran and I were both able to speak for a little bit, and it has cuts of many of the program speakers on there as well, and I'll send that around. And we've also requested the full-length video for Will's family. So if anyone was unable to attend but you want to watch it, we'll have that available to share as well. And the last item I wanted to share is today is the first day of the rollout of the Emergency Broadband Benefit Fund, which is a couple $2 billion in money to support people who need low-cost internet access and potentially low-cost devices. It's supported by the FCC and it's run by USAC, the Universal Service Administration Center. So the same folks that we get discounted internet costs from at the library. Fcpl is a lead on the county's rollout of this program. Fairfax County is working with Connected DMV to try and ensure that we're getting as much reach as possible into the community. You can get really deeply discounted internet access for a good period of time. And depending on what service provider you are, you can also get discounted hardware. It's called the Emergency Broadband Benefit, EBB. And our website for that is going to launch tomorrow. So I'll send the link around for all of that as well. We're working with many different county agencies, including the Department of Family Services, Neighborhood and Community Services, Community Services Board, Department of Housing and Community Development, and Cable and Consumer Services to try and reach out really broadly to as many community networks and nonprofit groups and faith community leaders to just get the word out there. And the library is offering 2 training opportunities for those community partners or just interested members of the public with our partners at Connected DMV to show people how to apply. It's a bit of a convoluted process depending on if you already have a service provider, if you're shopping around for a new one, where you live. So we want to try and make it as easy as possible. But of course, we're also going to offer the training to library staff. And as with anything, I'm sure we'll have many people wandering in looking for assistance from our lovely folks. So I'll be sending that information out to you all as part of your follow-up email tomorrow morning. And big thanks to our 2 new committee chairs. I feel kind of bad having dumped so much information on you all in your first meetings, but you took it like champs and you're geared up and ready to go for all the fun stuff to come. So thank you both for taking on those positions. And that is my update.
Okay, thank you. And now we're ready to move on to the action item, which is naming a bench at the Oakton Library in honor of Mrs. Charlotte Wineland. And let's see, I think you all, I know you all received that in your packet. So
Well, since this is the Oakton Library, if you don't mind, Fran, and if you don't mind if I introduce it.
That'd be great.
Okay, so, and I want, well, first let's go through this and then I'd like to ask Linda to say a few words because she has so patiently waited with us through the whole meeting. We introduced this last time, but as a consideration item, now it's an action item. So just for this purposes, it's the last page in your packet. The recommendation is that the library administration recommend approving the request to name a bench at the Oakton Library in honor of Mrs. Charlotte Wineland. The background, I don't know that I have to read this whole thing, but you know that this is policy P, allows certain fixtures on the library grounds to be named for an individual living or deceased who's made a significant contribution to the Fairfax County Public Library or an individual library. And I think when you hear about Linda's mom, Charlotte, I think you certainly will agree that that describes her. Charlotte Wineland passed away in October 2020. Linda Byrne is with us today. Her daughter asked about naming a bench at the Oakton Library in honor for her mother. Ms. Wineland had been a consistent and stalwart supporter of the Fairfax County Public Library. And when she moved to Oakland as part of the Women's Oakton Women's Club. She helped push for a new library to be constructed, that lovely building that we all know. She helped with fundraising book sales prior to and after the construction of the branch. And Linda would like to donate the bench and have it named in Charlotte's honor. The action item says that there's a map that's attached, but maybe Jessica, you could just tell us on what side the bench is, or in the front, if people know the.
Sure.
ability.
So the map had been originally attached last month as a consideration item, and we removed it because we're still trying to find perfect spots. Apparently the original perfect spot is no good because we have to add a curb cut there, and it was becoming difficult. So Linda and the Oakton branch manager, Lisa Kern, have been looking for a good spot that will not require a lot of construction to add a bench to.
And Fran, I don't know, is it appropriate? Do you want us to vote first, or can I ask Linda to talk about her mom for a few minutes first?
I think it would be nice to have her tell us.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Linda, can you take yourself off mute and share a few thoughts with us?
Unmute yourself. What? You need to unmute yourself.
Do you see on the lower left?
Click on your unmute.
On the lower left where the little microphone is, click on that so it says unmute. There you are.
Okay,
Perfect.
great. You now have the floor.
I love the work you do. I used to work for Supervisor Linda Smith and watched you all for many years. And congratulations on all the good work you do for our libraries. Kevin Brooks was his facility management expertise expert that went out to the library and said, we have to choose another place. The other thing that I wanted to say is when I met with Lisa Kern, we noticed that there are some benches at the library, but there are no children's benches. And so my thought is I would like to donate an adult bench and a children's bench. But if there's not enough room, I'm thinking a children's bench since we don't have any there, or maybe 2 children's benches. Whatever facilities can put in the proper place would be what I would like to donate. And the Oakton Women's Club would like to donate a tree or a bush or a plant to go along with the bench. Our concern is we'd like to have a tree or some shade because the current benches that are there are out in the sun. So I don't know how that's going to work, but I'm happy to donate 1 or 2 benches and would love to see it if you all would agree to go either way. 2 children's benches or an adult and a child's bench, or one, whatever can go there.
Can you tell us a little bit about your mom and her, her efforts on behalf of the library?
Yes. My mom was 101 when she passed away, and her love of books, I have to say this about her father. He had to leave school when he was at the end of 3rd grade to help support his family, and he worked as a bundle boy, and he had learned to read, and reading was so important to him. I remember as a child going to their house, and he took the hall closet, which is meant for linens, and made it into a library with a drop-out platform that served as a desk that would fold back up in, and his books were all in that. I still to this day don't remember where my grandmother kept the linens, but anyway, my mother and father both collected books. They had a large collection of Native American and Western explorative literature that's now a part of the Smithsonian Library, Smithsonian Library's collection. When my mother moved here after my dad died in 1989, she became a part of the Oakton Women's Club, and she, as a part of that group, helped to work to obtain the land for the Oakton Library. And I think you all know that that's the first library in Fairfax County where the land was actually donated by a developer. And my mother was a big supporter of then Providence District Supervisor Jerry Connolly, who helped make that happen. And as you heard, she enjoyed working the book sales. Before the library was built, we had book sales at the Unity Church next to the library. And she was just happy, and she lived in the townhouses across the street from the library on the other side of the giant shopping center. So it was easy for her to walk to get there. And
Well,
Well-
this is a lovely way to honor her, and we're so glad that you came forward to make the request and your generosity in making the donation. And so, Fran, if it's okay, I would, what do I have to do? Ask if there's a second or simply bring it to a vote?
Well,
I'll
I
I'll
think you have to
second it,
make,
Phil.
if you want to make the motion.
Okay, so I'll make the
just-
motion that we approve this action item.
Right, and then if anyone would, I need a second.
You need a
Phil
second, and then there's
seconds.
discussion.
I think Phil, did Phil, was
Phil
that Phil?
seconded.
Yes.
So then we
Yes.
have
Okay, Phil
discussion.
seconded. Does anybody have any discussion?
And the question that I have is, we don't need to change the wording to say it, because it's general enough that we have that, okay, that's great. Okay, that was the only thing that I was worried about. Okay, any discussion? I think Suzanne has her hand up.
There was a typo in the action item. It's Women's Club, not Clun. Fourth line from the bottom, Oakton Women's
Okay.
Club.
I wondered what Clun was.
Before we vote
Oh,
on
wow.
I thought that was something.
Some of us just read over that.
it, I know Fran always catches those, but I got you that one.
You got there first.
I'm fired now, yeah. I'm fired.
Um,
Anyone else?
Any other discussion?
More?
Okay.
Okay, I like-
So all those in
No,
favor?
also, Miriam, I get to do that.
Oh, you get to do that. I'm sorry. I was carried away with enthusiasm.
So I will call the question. So all those in favor, please
Aye.
sing aye. Raise your hand. Any opposed? Okay, great. The motion is unanimously passed. Thank you. I think this is.
All right. Thank you, Linda, very much for joining us. And
Yeah.
thank you for your
Yeah.
patience
Linda.
throughout the meeting.
Yes.
I enjoyed the meeting. It was very interesting.
We'll
Great.
look forward to seeing the bench or benches. where-
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
Oh,
and
thank you.
thank
Look
you,
forward to it.
Linda.
And
Thank
thank you for
you.
the gift
Thank
and
you very much.
It's
My
wonderful.
pleasure. My pleasure.
Okay, so we have a couple of new business items. One of them is transitioning back to in-person meetings, and I'm just going to mention, and then if it's okay, Jessica, I'll let you fill in the details, but we are thinking that we could actually meet in June in person, but we wanted to have, as I wanted to have it as a new business item in order for people to discuss if they have feelings of dread or whatever. So I will turn it back to Jessica to describe the
Okay.
plan, because for one thing, George Mason Regional Library Meeting Room is still
Not available.
yeah, it's still being used by the health department and is full of all of their equipment and all of their stuff that they do.
Yes.
So Jessica, take it away.
Sure. So the Board of Supervisors is resuming in-person meetings as of their committee meetings, which start on May 25th. And then their first in-person full board meeting will be on June 8th. This seemed like an opportune time for your board to think about whether or not you want to continue meeting in person or virtually. The governor's state of emergency is still in place, so you can still meet virtually if you choose to do so. That will not likely last forever, but if you want to, you can keep doing that unless it gets rescinded at some point. Boards, authorities, and commissions at this point do have the autonomy to make a choice. And Bobby and I are looking into whether or not, if you opt to meet in person for your full board meetings, if your committee meetings then also need to be in person, or if they could continue virtually. We're checking in with the county attorney's office on the requirements around that. But many other boards, authorities, and commissions are returning to in-person. The Board of Supervisors are returning into in-person. So we have tentatively booked a meeting room in the Government Center for your June full board meeting. Although we've been notified we will almost entirely likely be bumped because the health department has full opportunity to use those rooms. So we have asked the Pohick Regional Library if they could find room for us, and they are busily attempting to clear out some space in their meeting rooms just in case you all do decide to stay in person. So we have a first tier plan and a backup plan for if you would like to meet in person. Again, it's totally your board's choice if you want to at this point, and we're looking into some of the finer details of it. You may have also heard that Governor Northam is considering easing back on almost all restrictions as of June 15th. That is not finalized yet. He is just considering it. And if he does approve it, it would mean his last update about it said there would be no capacity limits, there would be no time limits, and social distancing would not be required. So that would also give you a little bit more room if your group was comfortable with how large of a space you were meeting in, because Bobby and I have been planning for any location you're in to have 6 feet of distance between any one trustee and another. So, Fran, that's most of the background. I'm happy to answer any questions about county stuff.
So, anybody have any? We can just, I see Sujatha first, so. And then I see Miriam. Okay, go ahead, Sujatha.
Can I ask, because I've never done in-person meetings, so can I ask, besides seeing all of you beautiful people, what is different about the in-person meeting besides seeing you all in person? Is there greater likelihood that the public participates, or lesser, or I just want to know like what the whole rationale is like.
So a good example for June is that there is the anticipation that you all are going to have a presentation from the last year's Foundation Scholarship awardees. So for larger events like that, it's often much easier to, easier is not the right word. There's a little bit more impact having something like that in person. So there are a lot of events like that throughout the course of the year: the Staff Excellence Awards, the Volunteer Awards, the Friends Choice Awards, the Foundation Scholarship ones. So that's about a third of your meetings that have some kind of event at the beginning of them. For public engagements, it really depends. As we were meeting at George Mason, we'd often have staff stop in and just kind of watch. But for members of the public, I would say that this is virtually is probably an easier way for most people to participate. Brian, I saw that you have some.
Are they recorded for the public when you meet in person? They are
no.
Okay.
No. Oh, and I should have mentioned this earlier as well. We are looking into if we can, the way that the law is currently approved and is allowed is if you have a quorum of people in person, you can still have some people participating virtually, depending on their reasoning for doing so. And that includes the public. So we're trying to figure out if we could set up a two-way communication, either just through a laptop or through a really nice screen setup, so that you could potentially have an in-person meeting where the public could stream in.
Like the school board has been doing recently.
Yeah.
Okay, so one of the things that I'd like us to consider, just because, I mean, I don't know about you, but like me, like it's just, this calendar is crazy. Like, and it seems that as we have gone virtually, our commitments have gone like this. It's much worse than it's ever been for me, ever in my life. So I'm wondering if it's possible for us to discuss or consider that we would do a mix, like we wouldn't do all of the meetings in person, but when we have all of these lovely things, Staff Excellence Awards would have been fantastic to do in person and all of that, whether that is something we can consider. And I do say that I realize that, we are far flung and traveling around this community is not easy. So for me to get to a meeting at 7 o'clock means that I leave my house easily by 5 at the early, if I don't leave by 5, and I'm just sitting in traffic for 2 hours. So that is something, and Sheila lives, I'm sure, nearby me. So that is not a joke, because that really does mean that any work you have to do has to be done in that time with all of these new commitments. So it's just something, since we have learned over this year that in fact we can be enormously productive without always driving all over hell and creation to get to these various things. It's something I would like us to consider, just in the interest of our of all of our commitments.
Okay, great. I think Miriam, you had your hand up, and Suzanne, I have you on my list, and Brian, I have you. Is that right?
And
No.
Priscilla.
No.
So maybe, I'm sorry if you've already said this, but if I missed it, maybe others did too. Did you say when George Mason thought that they would be making the room available to us again?
No, that's
So
what I was gonna ask
George,
you.
we are reassessing with the health department in July, but we don't have
Okay.
a firm date for when they're going to stop doing testing and vaccinations.
Okay, and then my other question was, you said that the county was looking at whether or not we could continue to have, I mean, what's the county's policy now on whether or not
Yeah.
we could continue? Because it's not up to us whether or not we can continue to have virtual meetings.
That is correct. So at this point, it is your choice, but at some point it will not be your choice.
Right,
And it
and-
depends on when the emergency is no longer in place.
Right,
So
and
right now, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm just going to say that I'm going to assume that once Governor Northam acts, that the county supervisors, that would be a trigger for the county supervisors to act. And then it's kind of out of our hands unless we request the supervisors to make this change. That would apply not just to us, but to all county boards and commissions is what it would have to apply to, right?
Kind of. So most of that is accurate, yes.
Okay.
However, the main issue is that the state laws around boards, authorities, and commissions don't fully allow virtual participation unless there's a state of emergency.
Oh,
So
it's the state laws.
Yeah, which is why the
Mm.
state emergency is buddied up with the county state of emergency. And there's two actual different reasons that a board, authority, or commission can say we're meeting virtually. It just depends on which one you pick. It's kind of silly. So this last session in 2020, the FOIA Council of Virginia was looking at options to amend that law in 2021. Or I might be a little bit off, but the next session, the one coming up in early 2022, is when they're going to discuss a potential change to those laws to allow purposeful virtual meetings not during a state of emergency. So there's very likely to be a gap between when the actual state of emergency ends and you'll have to go back to in-person meetings and when the state law is amended and you'll have the option of moving in either direction.
Okay, so the only reason I made you go through all that is that many things that Sujatha said, I'm sure we all agree with, especially the part about driving. Although, I think there's a definite advantage to in-person meetings, but I don't know how much time we want to spend on something talking about something that we may have no ability to change in the immediate future. It feels like, in any event, it would be a very worthy conversation to have once that happens. And I guess the conversation that might be worth having is whether or not, if we have any ability to influence that law or to lobby for that law or to whatever, that might be worth discussing.
I can say that the county is supportive of that change. So you
Okay,
can
so we
put
don't
your
really have
energy
to
behind
lobby
it as
them.
well, but
Okay.
the county is already pro.
Okay, well, there you've answered my questions. Thank you.
But it would
Okay,
make,
I think Suzanne was next.
Okay, I had two things. Jessica, perhaps there would be space at Fairfax City Hall for a meeting on a Wednesday. There's some big rooms in there, and
Okay.
they're a little more central than Pohick. And secondly, I still have some health concerns, not knowing who all has been vaccinated. If you're going to open it to anybody in the public, the George meeting room seems like a really small space to be among people who may or may not have been vaccinated. And that's
So-
just kind of a personal choice on our part, but we're still not going to restaurants and being very, very careful until a larger percentage of the population has received the vaccine.
Absolutely. And it is totally everyone's personal choice.
Right.
The way that the current law is stated is if you all are back to in-person meetings and someone would like to participate virtually, there has to be a quorum of members in person. And the person who would like to participate virtually, if it's for a health-related reason, and I can send you the specific language that talks about that, you can participate virtually as long as you'd like. If it's for a personal reason, like you're on vacation or you're driving someplace and you can't get there, you can do it twice a year, or there was another percentage in there. So there's a couple reasons already built in there. If you have a health reason, then there is an opportunity for you to continue to participate virtually, even if the law hasn't changed, as long as there's a quorum in person. And you could do that by phone or by video.
but there's still no way to control, you know, how many people can come to the public meeting
That is
room
correct.
size wise.
Yeah, if the governor still allows capacity limits, if that is still in place, then we will have those for places like library meeting rooms. But if those are rescinded, then there's not a lot of wiggle room.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay, and I think Priscilla was next. Was there anybody else? Priscilla?
Thanks, Jessica. Did I hear you say if masks would still be required in person?
That is a wonderful topic, and I don't know if you're leading in because you've heard it as well, and it was fascinating to you. So the last update that I heard from Governor Northam was not indicative of whether or not he would be rescinding mask wearing. However, the law in Virginia states that after the state of emergency ends, you cannot wear masks in public because masks and hoods are bundled together in state law. And unless you have an overriding, there's like a really specific line items why you can wear them, you are not allowed to wear them. So unless he re-ups the state of emergency after June 30th, you can't wear a mask in public.
Holy smokes.
Did you know that? Were you leading into that?
Unless they change that or they.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even if you have allergies.
Yeah. So I mean, like, really, are they going to go after people? I don't think so.
Yeah.
But it's just,
Yeah,
it's
no,
fascinating.
well-
The law is fascinating. Miriam, your profession is fascinating.
So given that,
Fascinating is
I
not
would
the word
just,
I would use.
I would like to say that I also am in favor of having virtual meetings as long as they're allowed to be virtual, for reasons stated already. And then if there's the opportunity to have committee meetings virtual, if we have to be in person, I would also be in favor of that. Not that my attendance in the middle of the day has been stellar, but it's almost impossible for me to leave my job in the middle of the day to drive somewhere. So I really wouldn't be able to participate as well in those as much as I would like to.
You know, it seems to me that there are enough variables between now and June and some dis-ease, not disease, but ill ease to be better.
Unease.
But I think more with the sort of the incident, not with the variables of like setting it up, what would it be? I'd say it seems to me that for June especially, continue virtual, and then get an update on the situation as we go forward. 'Cause it's kind of fluid right now with what's going to happen. Does that make sense to people?
I agree with Fran.
That's fine.
Okay.
Got it. We will plan a virtual meeting for June.
Yeah, okay. All right.
Fran, I
I
think
see
Liz
some
might have a
I see
question.
2 hands up, but I'm wondering, do you need to discuss anything?
Oh, Liz.
Yes, I just want to ask Jessica to clarify. Did you say wearing a hood or a mask in public is illegal?
Yeah, I will find the language and include it in my email tomorrow morning. When we read over the news briefing, it was this line item that kind of stuck out to many of us who read it over, and we couldn't quite figure it out. Let me see if I can just find it in my email right now, because it was very
Is that like against
odd.
burkas or something like that? I mean, I can't, a hood, everybody wears like
It's a public safety. It's a
Yeah.
public safety thing where, you know,
It's
it's like,
about
so
the
you don't have
intent
bank
to con-
robbers. and-
Yeah, so it's about your intent to conceal your identity is what it is.
Oh.
Yeah, and yeah, it's just fascinating. So yes, I'll be happy to send that language around to you, just so everyone has it.
Okay, because I think we can move on because that doesn't really impact us right now. Okay, so moving on to the next item. Thank you, everyone, for your input on that. I think it was important that we have a chance to discuss it. I'm not trying to cut things off, but except for hoodies. Okay. The American Rescue Plan Act is on the new business item list. And I don't know what to say about that. Why is it? It's there because of the idea, I think, that was expressed at an earlier meeting that like all this money is coming to the county, so how can we get some of it? Which I may be a crude interpretation. And my feeling on that is like, it's quite controlled where that money is going to go. So is there, I think maybe, is there anyone with their hand up who would like to talk about this item? Crickets? Okay, Jessica, do you have anything to add to my quick interpretation? Nope. Okay, well then we will move on if that's okay with everyone. So we'll do roundtable. Let me get my list. I'm looking for my list to make sure that I don't miss anyone. I want to thank everyone who participated in the story time recording. I know I did it, and I think Sujata and Keith. No, not Sujata. Keith and Suzanne. Did Liz? Did you have your hand up? No. No. Any Sheila. It was great fun.
I'm coming. I haven't done it yet.
Oh, okay. But thank you. It's very fun and very easy. And I think it's great that trustees were able to participate in that. Another thing that there was an article about that Montgomery County libraries are still closed, which I found shocking. So that's all. So let's start with Braddock while I find my list. Go ahead.
All right. I don't have a lot, but I was going to mention the Montgomery County thing. That is very surprising to me. And I'm very happy that we aren't in that position. So, and that's, because of the staff, of course, just Chris and everybody. So good on you. That's good.
Yeah.
And I am happy to be on the slate. So thank you for that. That's it.
Thank you. And Providence, Miriam, roundtable. You're muted, so unmute.
Nothing. I was just looking forward to doing that reading tomorrow, and otherwise, it's all good.
Okay,
nice
great.
to see you all.
Miss Miscavige. Jane.
Nothing for tonight. Another great meeting, and I really enjoyed the staff presentation at the beginning.
Okay, great. Suzanne.
Nothing either. And I too really enjoyed the staff presentation. It's such a good help to hear what's going on throughout the system, and it's really uplifting. Thank you.
Sujatha.
I don't have anything to say, but please click on that picture of Hannah. I mean, don't miss that in the chat. Click on the picture of Hannah. I'm reading The Napping House on the 19th of May.
Have to see this picture. Sheila.
Well, I thought the presentation was wonderful. I think I love each meeting that we're seeing what's going on in the libraries in spite of what we've been through this last 14, 16 months. The naming ceremony was the most beautiful ceremony I've been to in a while. And seeing Will Jasper's family there, and especially all those elected officials, it just shows how important the library is when they take time out of their busy days to come and honor one of our own. And I'm looking forward to doing the story time at the end of the month. So all good.
Okay, Keith from Lee District.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for a presentation on the ELL. That was really good. And thank you to our nominees, chair, vice chair, and foundation representatives.
Thank you. Gary, Mount Vernon.
I just wanted to join in noting Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month.
Yes.
Still anything for roundtable?
Thank you to Kylie, Jill, and Laurel. And also thank you for the generous donation. And I can't imagine that there isn't anybody who wouldn't deserve having that recognition of a bench who is partially responsible for an entire branch existing. So thank you.
Okay. Sally District, Liz.
Yes, I don't know if it's still possible. I don't know how I missed it in terms of the dial story, but if it's still possible to participate, I'm a volunteer. And I would be honored if I'm elected to be your rep at the foundation, Library Foundation.
Thank you, Liz. Phil, anything for roundtable?
Yes, if you can see the background, like many people have like fake backgrounds of the ocean, but I'm the only way I could join this, the only place I could be able to hear. I had to come to the lobby of the hotel, so I have the real Pacific Ocean in the background.
Wow.
Secondly, I'd like to thank Jessica and the group. I thought the thing for Will was a very, 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 very nice event. And again, very well attended. And again, I think most of us were there. So I thank you for putting that on. I think it was well deserved and presented in a beautiful way.
Okay, thank you. I think that's it for the roundtable. So if we have a motion to adjourn.
I move
Motion
we
to
adjourn,
adjourn.
Phil.
Don't everybody jump on that, my goodness. Okay, thank you, whoever was the loudest and gets in the minutes.
Okay, everybody have a nice evening. Bye.
Bye.
Did
Take
we
care,
get a
everybody.
second? I didn't hear it.
A second.
Okay, meeting is adjourned. And everybody look at that picture of Hannah. If you haven't
Oh,
done
it's a great picture. Thank you, Jessica.
I couldn't help it. She couldn't stay for the whole meeting, so I figured
I
I'd
know.
insert her at the end as well.
Cutie pie.
Does she have her
Bye-bye,
library
everybody.
card yet?
She does not. She's been mooching off of my library card. It's okay. We're gonna wait till she can kind of scribble her own name on there.
Ooh.